All right, so we're continuing our Family Matters series tonight. We're talking about siblings. Siblings. Okay? All right, now, tonight we are going to focus on siblings, but this can also work with like first cousins. It can really work with nieces and nephews. It can really work with a lot of different relationships. It can even work with friends, okay? But we are going to be centered on and try to keep it in the context of siblings, because many of you in this room have siblings, right? Yeah.
Well, it says let's be with the first siblings. Did you make a typo? You made a typo and now you're blushing.
Oh, I should say it again. All right. In my defense, being is a word.
It is a word.
And it has the same first two letters as the word begin.
It's the same letter.
The G is just in the wrong place. See? So it's really not that bad. All right.
Actually, it's probably
Mission successful. All right. Next week we're going to talk about why you shouldn't point out people's failings and rub them in their face in public settings. All right, focus power. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Short amount of time to do it in. So we are going to start with our first two siblings. All right. Do you want to know who those guys are?
Cain and Abel.
Yeah, Cain and Abel. All right, so we're picking up in Genesis 4, verses 6 through 7, laying down the context. Cain and Abel have just presented sacrifices to the Lord. God accepted Abel's sacrifice, but not Cain's. Who was the older sibling? Cain. Cain was the older sibling. All right, so we're going to read verses 6 and 7. It says, Then the Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? Why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. But you must master it. All right. This is God talking to Cain. Cain's grumpy because his little brother outdid him in the sacrifice. Cain's sacrifice wasn't acceptable. And so he's angry about it, and God gives him some very, very good advice. Boiled down, God told Cain to be aware of the influences competing for control over him. Told Cain to be aware of the influences competing for control over him. Be aware of the influences competing for control over him. Cain, just like us, lived in a world affected by sin, and so there were different things competing for mastery over his attitude and over his actions. Just like today, whether you realize it or not, there's a constant competition for things to have influence over you, to get you to do things. For example, media and marketing is a great example. All right? The goal with commercials, advertising, ads is to try to get you to buy whatever product is being sold, or to buy into loyalty to whatever brand is being sold. Actually, the fact that we wear t-shirts with logos on them, for example, you know why Adidas puts this here? So people see, hey, Adidas, that looks pretty cool. Adidas makes that? I'm going to go see if I can get one of those. All right? That's why they do it. When you wear, like Nick's got Rehoboth Baseball, that's so people will know, hey, Rehoboth Baseball, it'll be in our brains, we'll think about Rehoboth Baseball, we'll go see Rehoboth Baseball. All right? Anytime you wear a shirt with a big, like, Aeropostale, Abercrombie, Hollister, Listen, we're just going to talk about
Yeah, JC means it.
Whatever's on there, it's because they're using you, they're getting you to pay to advertise for them. Alright? They're using you to advertise their product so that their name is everywhere. Now, Cain, in this instance, there's tons of things. Sin is vying for influence over him because he's mad. He's mad at God. He's mad at his little brother. He's jealous of his brother. He's got shame because his little brother outdid him. He's angry. His pride is hurt. He's frustrated because his sacrifice didn't measure up. All right, these are all the things competing for influence over him, and God gives him really good advice. Hey, you need to open your eyes to the fact that this is not you making a decision. These are things that you're letting control you. In our relationship with our siblings, a lot of times it's like we're not even making the decisions of how we feel toward our sibling, what actions we do toward our siblings. We're letting other things influence us on how we interact with them or on how we don't interact with them. Completely ignoring your sibling can be just as bad, and sometimes even worse, than, making their lives miserable on purpose. Okay? And so the thing that going into tonight, I just want us to open our eyes to, is there's all these different things vying for influence and for control over your thought life, over your attitudes, over your emotions, and over your actions. And we need to realize that that's going on. All right? The person who says, I'm in complete control, is a very dangerous person because they're either lying or they're deceived. They've bought into the lie. Okay? All right. Now we've kind of set this stage. We're going to talk about a Christian view of siblings. It's not really something that is taught a whole lot. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of verses just to or about siblings. We've got tons of examples of siblings in the Bible, most of them negative. Like the first time we start off, Cain just kills his brother. Okay? And so it just keeps getting awesome after that. There's tons of examples of siblings doing horrible things to each other. Joseph's brothers beat him up, threw him in the bottom of the well, and then sold him to slave traders. Yeah. And then lied to their dad about it. And so Jacob and Jacob cheated Esau out of his birthright and out of his blessing. Right? And so we go on down the line through history, and we see that a bunch of bad things happen to siblings, and siblings do a bunch of bad things to each other. Even Jesus' brothers and sisters gave him a really hard time before they believed in him as the Son of God. So we can see that sometimes it can be hard to figure out what is a Christian view of siblings because a lot of the examples we have aren't that great. All right, but we're going to do it anyway. And the first thing is that siblings are a gift from God. Siblings are a gift from God. So we're going to go to Proverbs 17:17.
So are we reading this tonight?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Did you say that we read
And we've already done it. All right, now Proverbs 17:17. Good little verse. It says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Meaning that, hey, we've got friends. There are friends. All right? They stick with us. They have our backs. They love us. But there's something about siblings. All right? You can see brother or sister inserted in here. All right? Something about siblings that we have them for the really, really tough times. When things just get super bad, we should be able to rely on our siblings. That's one of the reasons that God has given us siblings. Jenny and I tell the boys all the time, because we've got 4 boys, and at 5, 3, and almost 2, can get pretty chaotic. And Carrie and Warren get along pretty well most of the time. But sometimes we have to remind them, hey, this is the brother that God gave you. These are the twin little brothers that God gave you. And so you need to treat them like they're a gift from God. I believe very strongly that God gave Jenny and I our children in the order that He gave them to us, the times that He gave them to us, for a reason and for a purpose, and that there's a reason we have 4 boys who are close together. Because one day they're going to get older and they'll either be each other's best friends and have each other's back and it'll be a great source of encouragement, or they will beat each other up constantly, always be fighting, and it will be horrible. And instead of patching holes in the wall like I'm doing now, I will be like rebuilding portions of the house. So, yes, I am. Yes, Caleb.
I have 3 older cousins, Nick, Adam, and Jacob, so they could almost burn down a house fighting.
So it can be a lot of fun, but here's the thing. Hopefully, Jenny and I do our jobs right. They can grow up and they can see that they have a huge, awesome resource in each other. That they have automatic friends. Not just friends, they have automatic people who are there to encourage them, build them up, have their backs, help them. Carrick already helps Warren learn colors and shapes and counting, and teach them how to read. I mean, it's really cool to see. And the twins, they help the twins do all kinds of things too. And so that's awesome. If that can stay that way, that would be a huge benefit. Or you can see your sibling as, a plague from God, or as the bane of your existence, right? And you can be like, you're here, the only reason you're here is to make my life miserable, annoy me, pester me, mess up my stuff, ruin my plans, drag me down. You can choose to take that viewpoint. Now, that is a very anti-Christian viewpoint, okay? That goes against pretty much everything that we have in the Bible. You can choose that, and, you can live that kind of existence with your siblings. All right, but the Christian view is that siblings are a gift from God. I want to read in John chapter 1. I think this is cool. Verses 40. Andrew and Peter were brothers. We hear a lot about Peter in the New Testament, but we don't hear a lot about Andrew. Andrew is Peter's little brother. Alright, so if we read in John 1, 40 through 42, it says that one of the 2 who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He found first his own brother Simon and said to him, "We found the Messiah," which translated means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon the son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. Andrew was a disciple of John the Baptist. Andrew was hanging out with John the Baptist one day, and Jesus went by. And John the Baptist was like, "Hey, that's Jesus. That's the Messiah, the one I've been talking about, the one I'm pointing to." And so Andrew and another guy went and they started following Jesus. Well, Andrew, as soon as he found out, hey, the Messiah's actually here, went and got his big brother. And instead of Peter saying, "No, I'm busy working, I've got to manage the family business, leave me alone," he went. So we get this really cool thing of Andrew introduced Peter to Jesus. Andrew introduced Peter to Jesus, which is a very big deal. At the same time, it's kind of like a normal thing, but it tells us something about their relationship because they also worked together. It's a big brother and little brother working together. We never have one instance of any kind of fight between Andrew or Peter. We never see any kind of bickering. There's no traditions that we have. They never got along. We've got 2 brothers. And remember, Peter is like in a place of prominence within the disciples. Right? He's in the inner circle. And Andrew is kind of in the outer circle. But we don't see any tension there. And we see that even though little brother said, "Hey, we found the Messiah," the big brother is like, "All right, that's cool. Let's go." That can be a really good example to us of siblings. One of the roles that you can have is you can introduce your sibling to Jesus, or you can help your sibling grow in their relationship with Jesus. When's the last time you talked about anything spiritual with your brother or sister? When's the last time you prayed with your brother or your sister? When was the last time you encouraged your brother or your sister in their walk with Christ? Just some questions to think about. Okay. All right, we got a really big, bold statement here in the middle. Okay? Bad sibling relationships are a big deal. They're a big deal. Bad sibling relationships are a big deal. Okay? All right, so we're going to look at 1 John. These verses in 1 John are kind of clue us in to why that is so. All right, so we're in 1 John chapter 2, verses 9 through 11. 1 John chapter 2, verses 9 through 11 says, "The one who says he is in the light, and yet hates his brother, is in the darkness until now. The one who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling in him. But the one who hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness, and does not know where he is going, because the darkness has blinded his eyes." The darkness has blinded his eyes. Now, in the immediate context, what John is actually talking about is talking about brother or sister in Christ. Okay? But I think that it's very safe to also apply this to biological or familial siblings. Alright? Meaning your actual brother or your sister. Meaning that if you hate your brother or your sister, but you call yourself a Christian, you're not in the light. You're actually in the darkness. And it's so bad you don't even know where you're going. You don't even know what you're doing because you are living in a bad relationship with your brother or your sister. Okay? There's this kind of unspoken truth communicated to us that tension-filled relationships with your siblings are normal. That it's just part of life. Just move on with it. It's okay. It's not really that big of a deal. It's a big deal, guys. It's a big deal because God gave us our siblings as gifts to us to help us in tough times, to introduce us to Jesus, to help us grow in our relationship with Jesus, and to be our friends when no one else will be our friends. To have our backs when no one else is going to have our backs. And those of you who are older siblings, to be the example to your younger brothers and sisters. To show them this is what it means to be a legit Christian. This is what Jesus is like. This is how you navigate through these areas in life that you're in now. I've already been there, so I can help you out. Alright? Bad relationships with your siblings are not normal. That's not like a thing we need to be okay with. Alright? As Christians. We need to always be striving for healthy relationships. Luke 15 gives us some insight. It's the second half of the story of the prodigal son. Alright, the first half we get the younger son leaves, wastes his inheritance, he comes back, the father takes him in. The second half of the story is the older brother's reaction to the younger son returning. Alright, so in Luke 15:25 it says, "Now his older son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And he summoned one of the servants and began inquiring what these things could be. And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he received him back safe and sound.' But he became angry and was not willing to go in, and his father came out and began pleading with him. But he answered and said to his father, 'Look, for so many years I have been serving you, and I have never neglected a command of yours, and yet you have never given me a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.'" The older son is mad. He's very angry. Because his little brother, who wasted his father's inheritance, gets welcomed back with open arms and a huge party. Alright, now, this older brother made a decision. Alright, he exchanged togetherness and fun for tension and bitterness. Alright? Don't exchange togetherness and fun for tension and bitterness. Tension and bitterness. Now, he could have easily walked into the party and had a lot of fun. Welcomed his little brother back in the same way. He said, hey, I'm glad you're home. He could have opened his eyes and realized that when the dad divided the estate, he divided it unequally. The little brother only got a third. He, as the older brother, still got the bulk of the inheritance, was still going to inherit all the authority in the family, was still going to get everything that was still there. So it was really his party too. The dad even says, everything I have is yours. In other words, if the older brother just would have asked, hey Dad, can I throw a party with my friends? He would have been like, sure you can. You work hard, you're a good son, go for it. But he never did. He just sat in contempt and stewed and thought about how unfair everything was. And he lost out on a really good time welcoming back in a family member. Because here's the deal, the older brother is still in charge of the younger brother. He still has authority over him. Since the younger brother has come back into the family, the older brother has not lost his position. He hasn't lost his resources. He hasn't lost anything. What he has willingly given up is a good relationship with his parents, is a good relationship with his brother, and he's harboring bitterness, meaning that he's just sitting on his unforgiveness, and he's unwilling to let it go. And he's just stewing in it. We all have that decision with our siblings. To keep the tension there, to keep the bitterness, or we can forgive. We can get over it. Next big bold thing is ask yourself, why don't we get along? Why don't we get along? Why don't we get along? That can be a really good question. Think about what annoys you about your siblings. Alright? Just think about what gets on your nerves. Okay, what really just sets you off. Alright? Some of you, it's that your sibling is just annoying, or your siblings are just annoying. They're always bothering you. They always want to be around you. They always want to be in your room. Or they always want to play with you. I can think of worse things. Alright, we need to start seeing things for how they are, not how we perceive them. Okay? Maybe you're a younger sibling. I'm the youngest in my family. I've got 2 older sisters. My oldest sister is definitely a first child. She's controlling, she's competent, she's in charge, she's got a handle on the situation. And she's very, very good at it. And she doesn't mean it in a bad way, that's just how she is. And I've learned to let her roll with it. Because when I do that, she does a good job. And I'm fine letting other people make hard decisions and take care of everything and just showing up. Because I'm the youngest. And I go with the flow. And I enjoy myself. Okay, so sometimes it's getting that birth order tension. Maybe you feel like I don't have anything in common with my sibling. Do you have weird parents? You know? There you go. There's something in common. Not that you should just sit around making fun of your parents. But, you know, you're in the same family. You have a lot in common. You just have to look for it. You need to find those things that rub you the wrong way about your sibling, and you need to ask yourself this question. Is this actually a big deal? Do I actually have the right to be annoyed about this? Or do I just need to get over myself? And I think what we find a lot of times is we just need to get over ourselves. A lot of us just want to remake our sibling in our own image. We want them to be exactly like us. Do things the way that we do them, have the attitudes that we have, see the things the way that we see them. When in reality, God has given us the great gift of a different opinion, of a different perspective, of a diverse personality, instead of just a little carbon copy of you. We need to realize that for what it is. Both my sisters are very different from each other, and they're very different from me. And we're finding out as we get older that that's a really awesome thing. That we bring to the table different perspectives, different experiences, different ways of doing things, but that God can use that for His glory and for our good. We need to do the same thing and think about where is the tension in our relationship coming from? And a lot of times we find out that tension is coming from our attitude and from our wanting to remake our sibling into our own image. You know? Because honestly, if you have little siblings that mess up your room, you know what? You could have little siblings that completely ignore you, and you could say, that sounds awesome. Maybe for a little while it will, but eventually, when you have siblings that don't want anything to do with you, it hurts. You can take joy in the fact, hey, they want to hang out. They want to be like you, guys. Maybe you have older siblings. Maybe it's hard for you to stay in touch with your older siblings. Maybe they're away, or maybe they're married, or maybe they're in college, or something like that. And you don't see them. Well, maybe it's time to start up some correspondence. You know, of calling them once a week, or get on Facebook, or however you can communicate with them, just see how they're doing. Maybe you've got a problem, you can ask them what they think. And then be ridiculous enough to take their advice. I'm at the stage now where if my older sister tells me to do something, I just do it. Automatically. I don't even think about it. I just do it. Because I see how wise and capable she is. She's only 3 years older than me, so it's not like, you know, she's like 47 or anything. But I've just gotten to the point where I recognize the gift that I have from God. The same thing with my middle sister. I recognize how capable she is. She leads a small group in the church that they go to of 10th grade girls. And so when she tells me something that their church is doing or something she's teaching or whatever, I pay attention to that and I look into it and I see, hey, maybe that will work here. So maybe some stuff's coming that's from pretty cool places in Nashville, right? Because I recognize the gift that God's given me. All right, it took me a long time to figure that out. I have it. I'm like, this is awesome. All right, and so hopefully we can all get to that point. All right, our takeaway is a passage of Scripture. It's 1 Peter 4, 7 through 8. These are great verses, great verses. All right, it says, the end of all things is near. Therefore, be of sound judgment, sober spirit for the purpose of prayer. Above all, keep fervent in your love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. All right, unpacking this, it says the end of all things is near. And what that means is that Jesus is coming back soon. It's going to happen. That's more true for us than it was for Peter when he wrote this. Okay? All right, so be of sound judgment. What does that mean? It means make good decisions. Think through things. All right? Sober spirit, meaning cast out all those negative influences and make sure that you're making decisions in the Spirit of God. It says, for the purpose of prayer, in the context of prayer, you're praying about this. How many of you pray for your siblings? All right? When you pray for your siblings, you don't have to raise your hand or anything. When you pray for your siblings on a regular, routine basis, not against them, okay? Not right. Something bad to happen to them, but for them. All right? In verse 8 it says, above all, keep fervent in love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. You know what that means? It means when you love somebody, you can see past their faults and their failures. Okay? I love my kids. So I see past all their faults and their failures. I see past their incredibly messy room. I see past the fact that they continually rip the doors off of their closet. Alright, I see past that they put holes in our walls. Because I love them and they're little boys. This is what they're going to do. It's just a part of it. Okay? And so I'm more than willing to patch holes for them because they didn't mean to. They didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. Okay? I can see past the fact that they always look to climb the window ledge and jump off of it. Okay? I can see past all that. I love my wife. I can see past the fact of the little things that she does and she doesn't do that aren't to my personal preferences. I look past that and it's not a big deal. I don't nag her about it because I love her. It's the same thing with you guys. Some of you think your parents ride you hard. If your parents rode you about every single thing you did they didn't like, they would never be quiet. Same thing with y'all. You constantly complain about everything, maybe some of you do, every single thing they do you don't like, you never be quiet. Because they're different than you. But here's the deal. Love covers over that. Love says, you know what, that's not a big deal.